So, this heated gear, I have heated grips, and I have the jacket under there. You can see that controller, probably about just over quarter, and I'm probably warm at that. I mean, I would say probably turn it down a little bit. And I'm wearing my Revit Glide Vintage with the liner in, a jumper, and then this warm and safe thermal liner. So I'm not normally at this temperature. I would have my mid thermal layer in, which I haven't got. So that's good that I'm saving that extra layer, because ordinarily that would be in, and that's the restrictive bit. So you got your base layer, then you got a jumper over that, maybe a t-shirt as well, and then you've got your mid layer, and then your jacket with a thermal liner. So all in all, quite a lot going on. And what I found is with that all on, I couldn't get my hands over my head to put my balaclava on. Really pissed me off that day. I was fucking fuming because I was hot, and when I'm hot I get very angry. So that's why I've gone out and I've got this warm and safe heated underlayer. Now, the reason for going with it as a base layer as opposed to a jacket, because Warm and Safe do the jacket, as do Gerbing have their own heated jacket, which is really nice. I just thought that was a bit too thick, whereas a base layer, you're already wearing a base layer anyway, so you just sort of save a layer. False neutral. So yeah, it's nice to save that layer and have it close to your body. And they say with it being closer to your body, obviously it's more effective, which it would be, because if you had it as a jacket, as say what your normal thermal mid layer would be, then that would be having a jumper and a t-shirt and probably a base layer below it. So it's got to get through all those layers to give you the heat. Whereas this is right against my skin, so I've got the heat instantly. So where it's heating me is around my neck, not too much, but I can feel it on the back of my neck. I can feel it around my shoulders, on my chest. Now on my shoulder blades, I can feel the warmth around there. I can feel the warmth on my bicep and tricep, and a little bit around my belly. So it's nice. It's not too much as well. It's not like, well, I mean, I've turned it down a little bit, but it's a nice warmth. It's not too overpowering. It's yeah, just comforting, reassuring. I quite like it, like a little hug. I've got it turned down here. That's off, if you can see on there, and all the way up will be back to where the light is, so I'm well under half. So just a really nice warm cuddle from your clothes, which is great. I mean, the problem you have is when you layer up, you always get that point where you got too many layers on. If you don't handle it right, or you know, you got to take a layer off because it's just a little bit too hot, or put a layer on because it's a little bit too cold, and that's a right pain. It's a right faff, because obviously where do you store all these layers? If you've got a GS, then great, you know, you can put your layers in there, and also you can start wearing adventure gear, which is kind of 4-season all built in one. But when you're on a naked or a sports bike, it's a little bit more difficult. You haven't got the storage space to be storing layers away, and of course if you have an adventure outfit on, it doesn't really suit your bike. So this heated gear is good, because it saves you definitely one layer, I would say 2 to 3 layers, or rather a thickness on one. So it's it's definitely the future. For a decent mid layer, you're going to pay about 120 quid. You're going to pay about 50 to 100 quid for a base layer. So it's really not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. If you're a new rider starting out, definitely put your money there rather than putting your money on the traditional stuff. I mean, for spring and autumn, the traditional stuff is great, but then, you know, you just use this, just plug in. The only faff is obviously you got to plug a cable in before you get on, and you got to remember to unplug it when you get off. But aside from that, absolutely fine. So heated gear, yeah, first ride out on it, really impressed, really like it. And if you're a tourer doing motorway journey, definitely, well, you're probably already in it. So anyway, so winter and heated gear. So if you ride in winter, I normally ride, as long as it's not raining outside, I'll ride all the way down into 0 or a little bit below. And as everybody knows and everybody preaches, the secret to riding in winter is layers. Now, it may not look like it, but I have a lot of layers under here. Now, this wasn't so much of a problem for me on a naked bike because you're in an upright position. But on the sports bike, this is really starting to prove an issue, which is why I'm starting to look into heated gear for underneath so I can actually shed some layers. So you see, if I jump on the bike, you'll see on sports, you're more leaned over straight away. On a naked, you're up here, you've got, you know, you're not feeling the movement so much in your body, so the layers aren't causing so much of an issue. On the sports bike, this is going to be your natural riding position here. Even if you're doing, as Moto Jitsu says, the Lion King pose here, you're about here, you're moving around a lot more. These layers are restrictive and I just don't like them. So basically, how do you shed these layers so you're not feeling like a Michelin man? And I think the answer is heated gear. I have a lot of layers on underneath here, and the beauty of layers is they keep you warm, which is the point of wearing them. The downside, however, of layers is obviously padding you out like Michelin man, and also you could run either too hot or too cold. If you haven't got enough layers on, you're going to be cold. If you have too many layers on and the temperatures go outside, you're going to be hot. So again, it's the constant faff of pulling over, taking layers off, putting them away, putting new layers on. So Knox actually had a really good idea for this. So if I lose my Revit Glide jacket, now I've still got all of my layers under here, which we're going to get into in a minute, but Knox came out with what's called the layering system. So all the layers that I have, base layer, jumper t-shirt, mid layer, and then your outer jacket. Now what the outer jacket is basically two jackets in one. The Knox jacket has zip down the side on all of her Studio Collection jackets. What that enables you to do is open the jacket out. So you can see already I've got a lot more manoeuvrability than I had on my street jacket. That said, however, Knox would still need the armour underneath, so there would be another layer being added here. But it was a great, you know, solution, still is a great solution, where you don't have to buy a oversized jacket for winter. So with this sports jacket I was wearing just there, it was too tight. Really, I would have sized up for one for winter. The problem with doing that is obviously you've got a jacket that doesn't fit you in summer, and your armour could be moving around, and that's why the Knox solution with armour separately is really quite a good one. So we lose our outer layer, our waterproofing, and our obviously slide and armour. And then we've got all of our traditional layers here underneath. So what I have is a mid layer. This is the Knox thermal mid layer, about £80. Mid layers will run you up to about 150 if you start going into the Revit line. Same with Rucker, Wise, all of that lot. You're going to start paying around the £100 to £200 mark for a mid layer. A cheaper alternative would be to buy just a walking jacket, a duck down jacket. They're thin, practically the same thing basically. Or you could just wear a hoodie, but not really as thermally insulating as one of these. Then you've got a jumper, cotton, preferably wool Minerio, and then down
we have a t-shirt, and then beneath the t-shirt we have the base layer. Now, whew, that's getting hot. So I'm now down to my base layer, and in this particular case the base layer is Warm and Safe heated base layer. Rubbish name, really good product. So with the Warm and Safe, I was a bit worried it was a bit old manny looking, but it actually, you know, I think it looks all right. But you know, it's underneath your jacket, doesn't really matter. The reason I went for a base layer over a mid layer, so the mid layer being like this one here, so you can have, so you'd have normally then a normal base layer, so imagine this Warm and Safe isn't heated, and then this would be your heated mid layer, and then your jacket over the top. But because of the sports bike, I wanted to be able to have the sports jacket, which meant needing to go thinner. And when I started looking around, Kai's had a like gilet type jacket, but they didn't have a full base layer, and I couldn't really find anyone I was happy with on the base layer style. Warm and Safe were the only guys there. Mid layer, Warm and Safe do their own mid layer, didn't like it, looked very old manny, that one. I popped in at Sports Bike Shop in Milton Keynes and tried on the Gerbing jacket. That was really nice, tight, looks quite cool, but again, it's a mid layer, not a base layer. So with this particular Warm and Safe, what you have is wires, and you can probably see them a little bit on camera, but you actually have wires throughout the product. So I've got them on my bicep, tricep, a little bit down the arm. I've got them going across my chest. I've got them here at the top back of the neck, which is really nice. Then you've got them on the shoulders, coming down the back and round the sides, nothing on your belly. So the heat that comes from it, really nice, really comforting. And how it all works is via some cables here. Now, I was concerned about the size of this, especially when you put it on and it's sticking out and you think, that's quite big. Now, if you imagine this is a base layer, so it actually comes down to your crotch here, and so this pocket that I've got here does come down, and you think that you would mount that there, but the reality is you actually just mount it further up at the top. And what I found is by placing it up here at the top, it was in no way with my belt on my jeans, and also with it being thick, I thought maybe it would dig into me. Didn't dig into me at all. So what I thought would be issues were non-issues. So then with this brick that you see here, this is a wireless remote controller, and you have two leads that come off it. The red lead for heating the jacket itself, and the yellow lead is for, if I show you in here, you actually have additional wiring. If you want to hook up some gloves, you would put your gloves in here. Now, I'm quite happy with my glove setup, so it's probably not something I would want to do. However, the idea of heated base leggings or pants would be a really quite good idea. So I'd have the yellow lead going into the base layer trousers, and what that means is I could then actually wear my jeans throughout winter and be toasty warm. So off the back of these two, you would tuck them away in here, and this wireless brick here pairs to a wireless controller I got mounted on the bike, and it nicely actually comes pre-paired. So you just pull the zip down here and you're left with this wire hanging out, which is what you use to attach to the bike. Just to show you, this is the controller here. The red is for the jacket, the yellow is for whatever auxiliary you are going to put in there. It comes paired, it's really easy to use. You just turn it, a little light blinks to say it send a signal to your garment, turn it again. So that's off. I literally had it about there, like 30%. I think the reviews are if you put it 100%, you know, it's gonna burn you alive. Because it's a base layer, I've got nothing underneath this, it's just skin. So this is getting straight to my body and heating me really quickly. So just to touch quickly on sizing. Now, I didn't want this to be super tight. I mean, you can see, you know, your belly is going to stick out. It's a base layer. It is meant to be tight. But I rang the guys at Motor Legends where I bought this from. Fantastic outlet. They're really great guys. If you want to get in touch with them, I'll put a link in the description. They also have their own channel reviewing clothes, which is really interesting. I find watching that and finding technical detail about clothes really good, so it's worth checking them out. But basically, I rang the guys there and I said, my dimensions are, I am 5'10", 5'11", I have a 42-inch chest, I have a 34-inch waist, hoping to lose a bit, and I am 13 stone. That puts me on the top end of medium, so their medium goes up to a 42-inch chest, and I thought, well, I don't want to be, you know, when you put a base layer on, it's like a compression top to get off. So I thought sizing up would be a good idea. Speaking to the guys at Motor Legend, they actually asked around the shop, because quite a few of the guys in there wear it, came back to me 5 minutes later with some feedback and said, yeah, if you size up, you're going to have a bit of gap, which I do, and I think this fits me perfect. I mean, bent over a little bit, it starts to give a little bit of a gap on the chest, so I'm not getting as much, you know, compression, the heat straight on it, but that wasn't really an issue at all. So showing how to connect it to the bike. So you have your big red cable, and all you do is you walk up to the bike and plug it in. So I was given a tip, I watched a video online, and I have down here my SAE connection. So that is to connect me to my trickle charger, because I have a tracker on the bike. And if you've got a tracker on the bike, the battery goes flat within 3 days. So power for the cause, I come home, I plug in my trickle charger, off I go. I thought to myself, well, I could just utilise that cable. I don't need to rewire another cable to the battery. But the problem is if you have an SAE connection, they're actually really strong and quite tight. And the danger there is if you're a forgetful sod like me, you get off the bike, you forget that you're attached, you've got heated gear, you walk away, and not an issue. This just flings straight out. But if I have an SAE connection, then chances are I'm going to pull myself or the bike over. So having that connection, there's loads of space in your battery to wire in two of these connectors. You've got two plugs, but one important thing to take note of is you have the cable on your left hand side, so you want to wire it to your left hand side, but your chain is on your left hand side. So do make sure that if the wires are dangling down, they're not going to get into your chain. They're not long enough to get down there, because that will be a very bad day out if you wind up doing that. So what I've done, at maximum pull, they can't get into my chain. There's no way for it to get down there. Same with the SAE connection. And to show what I mean, let me plug in my SAE. Now I'm only going to plug this in halfway. I don't ever plug it fully. That's enough to engage the trickle charger and not have any issues. If I show you here, I'm now pulling that. You see the bike had to really yank it to get that out. Sometimes you can push it in a little bit further, and that would be even then harder to pull out. Whereas here, you just connect that up, you just walk away, it will come undone. So I would definitely recommend wiring up the connector that comes with it, rather than using an adapter for an SAE. The beauty of this base layer, how I think it's going to really revolutionise riding for me, you just saw all those layers I had on. Now all I'm going to have is my sport jacket with a thermal liner, and that's it. This is basically my summer gear. I mean, in summer I would go out with a t-shirt and this jacket that I'm wearing now. So all I'm doing is, instead of a t-shirt, I've got the warm and safe base layer and a thermal liner in. This is, you know, the movement, the no restriction. I mean, you could wear a jumper if you're cold, but the jumper's more to actually wear when you get to your destination. I mean, honestly, at 5 degrees, I had about 30% of the heat coming through to here, and I was toasty warm, and that was with a very thin jumper over the top. So this really will cut out 2 to 3 layers out of what you would have to normally wear in winter, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. Really impressed with it, and because it's a base layer, it just fits underneath anything you've got. So that is a massive plus. So cost. The cost of this for me was £200, including the controller. So I think if you go on site retail, this base layer costs about £170, and the controller I think is about £130 for the dual controller. Now, always go for the dual controller. The single controller is going to save you 20-30 quid, and you know, you might as well go for the dual and have that functionality for later. Motor Legends were fantastic. Like I said, found this cheaper and they price match. So all in, I think I paid about 200 quid. But if you're paying the full ticket price, which would be near enough, say 250, 280 pound, maybe a little bit more, it's still not that expensive. I mean, if you think about it, a base layer, which this is, would cost between 50 to 150 pound depending what you're buying. Now I've got a pair of Rucker base layers. They're £50. That was for the top and the bottoms. Really cheap. Got them on a great deal at Sports Bike Shop. But pair of Knox base layers, you're looking at about 60-70 quid for the top, 60-70 quid for the bottoms. That would be the same, you know, if you go down any other brand's route. So you're looking at, say, 100 quid for base layers. Let's just round it to that. Then mid layers. The Knox mid layer there was £80. You can go all the way up to £200 if you get a nice stylish looking Revit. So let's average that at 150. So we're already at 250, to which this is under that if you're finding it cheaper online or if you're paying the full ticket price. And it negates, it is a base layer, so I no longer need the base layer. And it gets rid of the need for a mid layer and anything else above that if you're buying like cotton. So the cost, although expensive, it's a complete no-brainer if you haven't got the kit to start with. If you have the kit, then it's worth saving because you're just going to shed all these layers. So negatives, they're actually, for me, not many. I mean, style could be a bit better, could be a bit more neutral. I mean, there's red piping, but you know, that's personal preference. It's under my jacket, so I really couldn't care less. The collar, when I zip it up, if you've got some beard hairs here, they do sometimes get a little bit caught. Move your head and that will flick. I mean, it does it with a neck tube for me as well. You know, I think it's the sort of lycra material, you know, your beard gets in there. I thought this cable and the wireless controller in here would be a negative and it would dig into me and it wouldn't be able to sit high enough, but in actual fact, that's been absolutely fine. The length of the cable that comes from it, I was thinking maybe I needed to put it there, especially if I'm on the bike and I want to stand up just to stretch my legs. But you know, I've got that cable there fine. This one, I mean, that's when you're installing it, plug it in, and actually, you know, if you do like standing up and stretching your legs, or like me, you've got a bit of sciatica play, you know, you need to stretch it out, just test that with the length. The wires on show could be a negative. I mean, they're not, you can see they're not drastically on show. They're just a bit more obvious than they would be on a mid-layer jacket. But again, doesn't bother me. I've got my jacket over the top of it, so not an issue. One thing that is an issue, however, and if they could solve this, it would be fantastic, but I think it's the nature of the beast, is it's not machine washable. So if you want to wash this, you have to basically turn it inside out, get yourself some travel wash on a cloth, cold water, give it a good rub, you know, clean it down, and then let it dry, air dry. Because you've got the wires, because you've got electronics, obviously you can't put it in the machine. Now that is the same for any heated gear out there. Your gloves, your socks, your, you know, your mid-layer jackets, they're all going to be the same. That is obviously just a drawback of having electronics, you know, in a garment. Will they fix it one day? Maybe. I mean, for now though, you know, if you're doing some commuting every day, maybe you'd want two, so you can, you know, have one in the wash drying while you're using the other. If you're just out at weekends, you know, you can manage it quite easy. It's got all that antibacterial stuff in it, so, you know, it stops it smelling too much. But at the end of the day, if you're living in this all day, every day, you're going to need to clean it. How sweaty and stinky you are, I'll leave that down to yourself. But if you want to cheat, maybe just Febreze it down. But that's something to just consider and bear in mind, where obviously you don't have that issue with base layers, you just whack them in the wash. So in summary, basically, I love it. It's cut out a load of layers. You've just seen all the crap that I put on in the winter. I mean, I am an absolute pussy when it comes to the cold. You know, heated grips are on maximum level. I've got winter gloves out. I've got all those layers on, and this is just cutting all of that bulk and faff. You know, put this on, put the jacket on, plug myself in, off I go. So that is brilliant. I am really pleased with this purchase. The issue always with layers is, where do you put them? Where do you put them, you know? And this just absolutely solves that issue. So for that reason, you know, I'm so in love with this product. So I'll put links in the description to what I have and where I got it from, but basically, just to quickly summarise: warm and safe heated base layer. There was the Knox mid thermal liner, and then I have the Revit Vintage Glide leather jacket, and I also have the Knox Leather jacket. That's what you've been seeing here today. For the bottom, I have the Revit Lombard jeans. These are really great jeans. They have the Sea Smart armour in there, which is Sea Smart or Sea Soft, which is really, it's like the new Ghost armour. It's so thin and pliable, and Revit have had it for ages. Then I am wearing the Danese trainer boot. Yeah, links will be in the description if you're interested in any of this gear. So thank you for watching. I think I've about covered everything I can on this warm and safe heated gear. Hope you found that useful. As always, it's just my personal opinion. I'm not endorsed or sponsored by anyone, but if you want to, please throw it my way. Yeah, I hope that was useful. If I haven't covered anything and you've got some questions, please put it in the comments and I'll get the answer for you if I can. Thank you, and please give me a like and subscribe, and catch you on the next video. Thank you.